Self-belief. Going into 2023, we think it's one of the most important things you can have, whether it be in your career, in your business, in your personal lives. Self-belief is so important. We're going to be discussing what are the benefits of having good, strong belief in yourself. So Abdul, let's talk a little bit about self-belief. Tell me a little bit about a moment in time when you thought you had low self-belief and when someone else has helped you gain self-belief to then attain a form of success.
So self-belief, even the word, I'll be honest, I wasn't too familiar with it. I used to think it was wishy-washy stuff, right? It's all kind of soppy stuff. I don't understand the value of it. I didn't really even know what it meant. I think self-belief, looking back, it's so important. And a quick example that springs to mind was when I was the F1 on general surgical rotation. I was busy on call, struggling, speaking to my reg, and it was like, yo, I'm struggling. Do you know what? Like, you doubt yourself. You've been through med school 6-7 years, but you're struggling to deal with the basic stuff that you know how to deal with, right? Yeah. So I said to him, like, yo, the bleep's going off. I'm struggling. And he didn't say it was self-belief, essentially, but he said, you need to understand that you got through med school. You're here. You're doing well. You know what to do. Just believe in yourself. Understand that you're probably one of the very few people in this hospital in that moment in time when someone does bleep you that can do what you do. So you need to go in with that mindset, because if they didn't need your help or they knew you couldn't do it, they wouldn't even bleep you. And there are nurses, or like even in healthcare, I'm sure you know that when there's a bunch of doctors on call, they kind of pick one or two people they know that will get the job done, rather than someone they think, do you know what, it's not worthwhile. It's better for me to ask someone else. So I think that's a moment of self-belief, or kind of understanding how valuable that was.
So the direct sort of factor that self-belief leads to there is performance. So there's a pattern, maybe not causation, but a pattern where having good self-belief in yourself often leads to better performance. And that's a great example. I think I've experienced that as well. I noticed that when you're nervous, you're dilly-dallying a lot, it's creating delays, you're not sure whether to you're not making a decision, you're not trialing, testing, it's creating more issues. So I think you're right. So when you have self-belief, you go in with the fact that I'm trained to do this, I've studied to do this, so let's do it, right? And I think it creates better performance. But what about the mental health aspect of that? Talk to us a little bit about how self-belief relates to mental health now. So you talked about, oh, you know what, I felt like this, but now I feel like this.
So I think self-belief, it puts you in a positive frame of mind, and that will naturally lead to better mental health and well-being, because you then start to see things in a different perspective, in a different light, right? And when you kind of believe in yourself, or you give yourself the reassurance of, I can do this, I've been trained to do this, I know what I'm doing, I know how to deal with X, Y, Z situations, you then see things in a more confident manner, in a positive way. And naturally, I believe that when you're thinking stuff and you know, that naturally plays out in your actions. Do you know what I mean? It's like when you have a negative thought, or you're feeling depressed and down and sad, it reflects in your actions, right? So imagine you have really strong self-belief, you've given yourself this confidence boost, you're self-assured, naturally it will play out in the way you kind of, you know, act and physically do things.
Yeah, exactly. So you've tied it back to performance, but before going on to that, you're right. So having good self-belief and confidence in yourself is exactly that the problem can be solved, that you can get it done, get the work done, whatever outcome you need, you can go and get it. And I think, so when it comes to having good mental health, we talk about things like having good sleep, a good appetite, good diet, exercising. And I think you having a surety in yourself helps you in those realms, right? So because I'm sure in myself, and I feel confident that I'm a relatively good doctor, it means that, you know what, I won't just mope around in bed after. I'll get up, I'll go to the gym, I'll go for a run, I'll meet people, I'll socialize. I feel better in terms of mental health wise. And then you tied it back to performance. And then the third thing is problem solving. Do you think it helps?
Definitely. I think when you have self-belief, or you've built up your self-belief, it gives you, it's like a superpower. You feel like you can solve everything and anything. And if you can't solve anything and everything, you know how to tackle it, right? You are, rest assured that you've reassured yourself that whatever comes your way, you're going to be able to deal with it. And same as for problem solving, right? It's that confidence within yourself to do what you think you can do.
Exactly. just tying it back to now the startup world. So I think self-belief is so important for the startup entrepreneurship space, right? I've noticed that as well, that when you go in with the mindset that I'm going to find a way and I don't care how, we will find a way, that way does open up, right? Because what can happen is you come up against a brick wall and you can decide, you know what, that's it. It's the end of the game. Or you can decide, I'll find a way. I'll see what solutions are out there, who can help me, what products are out there, what things can I use, can I ask someone, and you find a way. So I think self-belief is the one thing, it's the driving factor that allows you to solve problems, key problems. Can you think of a time when you had low self-belief and you never found a solution because you gave up?
So before I answer that, so what you said about self-belief and entrepreneurship and the projects you do, it's because you have self-belief in what you're doing, self-belief in yourself, you then go out and find these solutions to the problems you're facing. So going back to moments when we had poor self-belief is probably like exam time at med school when you're not performing. So I've revised just as hard as everyone else. I've put the hours in, yet I'm not performing or getting the grades as everyone else. That naturally builds a sense of poor self-belief in yourself. And you're thinking, am I good enough? What am I doing wrong? And you have doubt. And going back to your mental health, that then does take a toll on your mental health, on your well-being. And then you go down this dangerous spiral. So exam time, and I think a lot of people will have the same thing.
So you're saying that having poor self-belief can lead to a downward spiral in all of the three factors, I guess: mental health, success, and what was the last one? So
mental health and well-being, right? And your success. And I think poor self-belief then leads to self-doubt, so on and so forth. And it's a downward spiral, right? And it's then, and I always relate to the physical side of things, it then affects your relationship with others, your network, friends and family. You kind of shut down and kind of move yourself away from those environments.
How so? This is important. How does it? People are going to be watching this and say, wait, hold on a minute. We get how self-belief can affect performance because you can just be sort of down in the dirt. We can see how it might affect mental health because being down in the dirt, you'll be at home rather than be out in social circles. How does it affect those parts, the network part?
So self-belief, right? When you've got good self-belief, you're on a high. You're at the top of your game. You want to be out there. You want to meet people. You want to connect with people. You want to build your network. But when you have poor self-belief, you don't have confidence in yourself. You've lost assurance within yourself, right? And you don't want to expose yourself to these situations which will make it worse. Friends and family might be easier, but when it's networking or you're in a new environment where people don't know you, imagine you're already going with poor self-belief and you don't want to, as human nature, put yourself in a position which exacerbates that feeling. So what you're going to do, you're going to remove yourself from these environments and opportunities or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. So in this particular point, when I noted down the show notes, self-belief is related to your risk-taking ability and your personal growth, right? So when you're assured of yourself, when you're really sort of confident in yourself, in your abilities and everything, you're more likely as a person to take risks and opportunities. So when I say risks, I'm talking about ventures, businesses, to learn something new, to try a new sport, to if you've never gone to the gym and you're a sprinter, you might try weightlifting. If you're a weightlifter, you might try calisthenics. So you're more likely to try something new. And trying something new is really important to personal growth. I think that's so important for everyone in any sphere, in any industry. You branching out, you learning about different things is part of your self-growth. We often feel unhappy because we feel stagnant, right? It's when you feel like, oh, I'm not learning anything new, I'm in the same job, I'm doing nothing else, right? And that is connected to self-belief because then you start thinking, well, I'm probably not good enough, right? The moment you start to reassure yourself, the moment you start to think, you know what, I am deserving of what I have, you start to say, you know what, I'm going to learn this online, I'm going to go for a course online, I'm going to speak to this person, I'm going to attend this networking event. So you start to venture out, and that's where personal development happens. I think working on self-belief is so important for your growth in wherever you go in life. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. And it makes sense. It's natural. If you've got really good self-belief, you have confidence in yourself, you know you can do things, and you put yourself out there, and it lends itself to opportunities, risk-taking behavior, and you may tap into an opportunity that then allows you to excel in your career or your relationships, and that makes you feel better as an individual as a whole. So yeah, that's kind of, you know.
So big question now then is, how do you build self-belief? See, that's that. So we know. So just to summarize, okay, self-belief is related to having good confidence, good mental health, problem solving, personal growth, development, taking risks, taking opportunities, getting out there. Fine. We've convinced the viewer of, all right, I want to invest into self-belief. How the hell do you now build self-belief if you don't have that belief in yourself at this moment?
So I think self-belief, a good way to do it without having to do anything moving forward, is looking back. It's looking back at your life, your career, your education, seeing the achievements you've made, be it small or big, right? So let's say as us, as junior doctors, you can build your self-belief looking back at your time at medical school. You got into medical school and it was super competitive, right? And you managed to get in. You then managed to get through medical school and graduate, right? Then you became a junior doctor. And you did that because you were able to, you had the skills and the ability, right? That in itself is having that self-belief. And I think it's putting all of those little wins together to build this confidence within yourself. And then using that momentum, that inertia to move forward and be like, hey, do you know what? I got through those big hurdles at the time. I can go through what's coming up next, which is maybe it's the first time I'm going to do a night shift or work the weekend or do like a really busy on call. And I think building on your achievement, building on your small wins is what build self-belief.
Okay. So achievement. So looking at past achievements is what you're essentially saying, and not neglecting how important they are. Yeah. The truth is, a lot of qualified doctors would have killed as a first-year medical student to qualify. Yeah, of course. Right? But then we forget that, and then it's suddenly it's a moving goalpost, right? We then say, oh, I'd kill to become a consultant now. And then when you're a consultant, I'd kill to, I don't know, become a senior director or something like that. Whatever it is, it's a moving goalpost. But you're right, by reflecting, you start to think, oh, you know what? I've achieved quite a lot. I think the second point that I want to make about self-belief is having the confidence in yourself is also like, there's a spiritual element to it as well. There's a spiritual element to it as well, your faith side to it as well. So, for example, if you are religious, as me as a Muslim, right, you have that sort of belief in that your fate is written for you, etc. Your provisions are written out there, and the opportunity is there for you to go and get it, right? So the world is your oyster, essentially. Go and get what you think you can go get. And there's nothing stopping me. There's nothing stopping me as long as I'm willing to put in the graft, the effort, and work hard. So there's a faith side to it, right? And then there's self-confidence in sort of my physique as well, right? Everyone wants to feel good. Right? Feel good. We know exercise is related to feeling good. So self-belief is so important. So to build self-belief, I genuinely believe you have to get out there and get your body moving. Be it running outside, running in the gym, lifting weights, calisthenics, whatever it is, you need to be moving. Anything on those two fronts, faith and exercise.
I agree. I think similarly the way self-belief affects your mental, emotional well-being, and we said that it also enacts or translates in your physical actions, then it's the same thing, right? If you mentally look back and be like, okay, these are the things I've achieved, I've done, it improves your self-belief. Then at the same time, your physical stuff, moving your body, kind of getting momentum, getting your heart rate up, should also affect your self-belief and give you that confidence. It's like guys when they go and get a haircut. They themselves haven't changed. Nothing's changed about them other than a haircut. Yet, I bet you if you ask any guy, they'll be like, their self-belief, their self-esteem, their confidence has gone through the roof, right? Because they physically feel better, they look good, and that in itself kind of feeds back into this loop of building their self-belief.
Absolutely. Anything on the faith front?
Faith, of course. I think even as Muslims, as in, it comes back to the thing about self-belief in the sense that I think poor self-belief also stems from the fact that you feel like a lot of the things that go wrong is your own fault, your own reason, and you have control over things. Whereas if you're faith-driven, you understand and you learn very quickly, even from a young age, that not everything is within your control, right? And when you realize that, the things that may have otherwise given you poor self-belief would then be like, hey, do you know what? Maybe this is a reason for me to do this, or this happened for this reason. And it all makes sense kind of looking back at hindsight. Naturally will help your self-belief increase.
I think one thing faith does is it teaches you gratitude, and we know gratitude is a driver of happiness, contentment, and also growth itself. So being grateful with your previous achievements and so forth. So we know that faith is a great driver for that, for us personally. I think then the other thing, so we've talked about exercise, we've talked about faith, we've talked about looking back and reflecting, right? Anything else that you can think about when it comes to self-belief and how to hone and develop that and grow that?
I think we're social creatures, social beings, and I think environment plays a big influence on us more than we like to admit or know. And I think surrounding yourselves or being in a positive environment where there are other people that do have good confidence, that do have high self-esteem, high self-belief is good. And I think that will naturally pass itself on to you, that energy, that feeling. Because imagine you're in a team of junior doctors, or you're an entrepreneur institute, or whatever it may be, and everyone's buzzing. They're like, yo, do you know what? We're struggling, we're gonna kill it, we've got this and that. Naturally, you will start to kind of pick up that bug of self-belief. Yeah. So I don't know if you make sense with what.
That's quite important. Your friends, it's having a good friends circle, having a good network. If around you there's positive energy, naturally you're gonna be full of that too. I think another key recommendation I'd have is being on the edge of always learning. I think learning is so important to self-belief. When you feel like you're growing constantly, right? So if you, like, whether it be in medicine or outside of medicine, when you feel like you're constantly learning, whether it's design, if it's in design, if it's in entrepreneurship, if you're learning medicine and principles and doing exams and the MRCP and CS, and you're growing constantly, you're constantly learning, you feel that you're making progress and it fills you with belief, confidence in what you do. So I think also being on the edge of always learning. I think we're lifelong learners. We should always be lifelong learners. I think lifelong learning, it fills you with a sense of belief in yourself because you feel like you're training constantly. And if you're able to action it straight away, then that is great. That's like the other side of the coin. If you learn something and you action it straight away, that is great. That fills you with self-belief because it shows to you what you've learned, you've actioned, and you've got an outcome from. And if the outcome is what you desire, it just boosts you. It's a positive feedback cycle. That's it from me in terms of what I think about self-belief and how to grow it. Any other ideas?
No, I think not a lot of people talk about self-belief. It's not taught. So a lot of this stuff, self-belief, self-esteem, confidence, it's super important, but people don't talk about it like a formal subject or a topic. Whereas I think there needs to be a lot of emphasis because I think people that have really high self-belief, self-esteem, they always perform well. They're very confident and it reflects in their actions. Even when they're a junior doctor, they have this confidence like, do you know what? I know what I'm doing. I got through med school. I can deal with it. And you can see it. You always see those junior doctors thinking, how on earth did I do it? Right? And self-belief is more than this gimmicky, soppy thing. Like it generally does affect your well-being, your emotion, your relationships, and the way you are as an individual. So I think going into 2023, it's something we should be conscious of, and we should always do things to improve our self-belief.
Absolutely. Working on self-belief is critical. I think that's a good point to end it. In terms of self-belief, do you guys have any tips? If you do, drop it in the comments below. And otherwise, we'd love to know any other recommendations for future videos. Otherwise, see you in the next video.